All right, welcome back. We are WEBD6201 in the winter 2021 semester, and it's week 5, part 1 of our broadcast, and we're talking about a little bit more about jQuery this week. jQuery validation, we're also going to use regular expressions and a bunch of other really cool things. Last week, we covered what jQuery is and those kind of things. And this week what we're doing is we're going to be completing our contact list CRUD. CRUD is a terrible word, but it stands for create, read, update, delete, as well as we're going to do more form validation. As you're going to see, there's more forms that we're going to use. We're going to be using something called regular expressions, which you guys may or may not know how to use yet, as well as more classes and objects. We're also going to try and create our login and register forms. So we're going to have all kinds of interesting things that we're going to do. Just a reminder that ICE 4, so that's in-class exercise 4, will be due Saturday at midnight. And Lab 2 will be, again, is due week 7. We're also going to have Test 2 next week, and it's largely going to be around jQuery. So that's what is happening. Next week, again, is the week just before our break. So expect that there's going to be we're going to do a bit of a review next week on jQuery. We're going to add in, probably start talking about Ajax early, only because in the second half of semester, there's going to be a test 3, which is largely on Ajax, and it's just kind of positioned weird. So I'm going to probably start talking about Ajax next week. All right, so that is where we're going. Let's talk about where we're at. So I'm just going to again, go up online, just as I said, and download 3B, just like you would be. So this is our starter. And then I'm going to put up our version. So again, I'm going to download the zip file for this one. And what we're going to do is I'm going to start off with on my desktop. As soon as that's finished downloading, which there it has finished finally. Let's go there. So this is our structure. I'm just going to grab our download from this week. So there it is. And I'm just going to extract it. So some people had issues with this, but you need to actually extract it with 7-zip. I find that using RAR or something else, or even built-in Windows decompression, just doesn't work great. So 5B is what we're going to work with. This is the project. And I'm just going to bring up VS Code here and drag and drop 5B into it, like so. All right, so this is where we started off last time. And what we did with this, just to show you, if I do a control backtick and do light server, then we're going to see that it has in our contact list, we have a way of checking on or subscribing our contacts, and we have our services blank still, but in our show contact list, you might see something that looks like this. You know, as an example, it could be something that looks like this, or it could be full. Let's take a look at our assignments, or our you know, what we have here in our application. And you see that we have this in our application. So why is, in this case, our contact list not showing? Well, a couple of things to note that may be stopping this from working properly. One is that whenever we download something from the internet, let's go back to that, there's no, you know, as an example, we got some node modules here, but there might be some issues with some of the things we're doing. And we can do some troubleshooting because it should be working, right? This should show us our stuff. And let's do our console and see what's going on here. So we're getting some mouse events happening. This is good. Let's refresh. And it says uncaught type error, cannot read split of null. And that is in our contact.js. So let's take a look at contact.js. And it's trying to deserialize something that is being read. And let's take a look where that is. You may not have this error. I do for some reason. But let's take a look at what we got here if I've got everything that we need. So I'm just going to scroll down here. Again, I always like to check kind of everything that we've got going on. Again, this is showing us in our list. Just make sure that I have what you have. Sorry, I just want to make sure that my stuff is displaying properly. What I've got here and what you've got is good. So yeah, so it tells you where it is. So it says in the display contact list, this is the call stack, right? So it goes from start and it goes from display contact list on line 123. This is what it looks like. And it says, let's deserialize a contact, right? So deserialize the contact. And it says contact, core.contact. I'm trying to deserialize something with my contact data that's coming from my item, my local storage, right? And this is assuming that I'm getting items out of my local storage. It should be working, right? But what could be causing this problem? Because remember, and I'm not sure if you guys are getting the same issue, but I certainly am. I'm trying to split something in my deserialize, and it's starting to split null. But that means that there might be an item in here that is null. And if I look at my application, you can see that I've messed something up here. This is a problem. I have 3, 5, 7, 4, 6, 2, 8, but I don't have 1. Notice I don't have 1. So this is a problem with our thing. If I erase the first contact, then my entire contact list gets erased. And that, my friends, is something we need to remedy, right? This is a bit of an issue. So let's add in a key number 1 with some contact information. Just going to add in me to show you this issue. Just really quickly, you can do this, right? And when I do that and refresh the page, then we should have no problem, right? So again, if nothing is shown here, that means you don't have anything in your application area. That means you have to fill this up with stuff, okay? So if this isn't showing up for you, then what you need to do is you need to go in here in your application tab and enter some data. That's why it's not showing up, okay? So make sure that that is correct and that you have, right now, numbers in sequence is what's happening. All right, we could also use a flat file for this, but we're not going to do that. One thing that we can do right now in this version of our contact list is if I click delete, then it's going to come up with, hey, are you sure you want to delete this? And if I press OK, then it'll delete the last one, and that's good. That works fine. But trying to delete something that is higher up, but it's causing a problem because of the way that we're making everything work. And we don't want to make it work this way at all. Right? What we want to do is we want to make it work so that it doesn't matter. So we don't care about the sequence for this kind of stuff to happen. That's what we want to do first. So the first thing we want to do is change the way that 1, we serialize, and 2, the way we kind of flip through the list. All right, because right now we're looping through the list with a for loop. And that's why we had that error, because it's trying to loop through and use the ID as an index. And that won't work if I want to delete something from the top or the middle or something like that. So how do we fix that? And, what are we going to do? Well, one thing we can do is we can look at the object, and the object, which I'll show you what it looks like, right? If I go to... and I'm going to look at some parts of the, I'm here in the start method. And if I do something like, let's say let keys, right, equal to object. And notice that object is the superclass of all superclasses. This is like, the kind of the root of all classes in JavaScript, right? And if I go dot, notice that there's a bunch of things that we can do with it. And one of them is keys. There's another one, assign. Define property. Remember, I can do a define property or create an object. I can also look at a prototype, object.prototype. We saw when I was doing object-oriented programming 101. We can also apply, bind, or call, or define properties. We can do a bunch of other stuff. These are all the things that are part of object. We can also compare if the object is part of something we can also make an object with a string. There's a lot of things that are part of the default or the basic object, if you will, object class. So that's what this is. And if you look at it, it says provides functionality common to all JavaScript objects, right? Well, keys is something that allows us to look through, and it says returns the names of the enumerable string properties and methods of an object. Well, that means I can probably do something like this. I can say object.keys, and then inside there, put in local storage. So what is this going to return? Let's do a console log of keys. What is that thing, right? And if we go back to our website there, and if I look at the console, which will appear everywhere now, you can see that I have an array of 7 objects, and you can see that these are all the keys. 1, 2, 6, 7, 5, 3, 4. This is good, guys. If I have an array, I can loop through it with a for each loop instead of a for loop, which means I don't have to use an index, which means I can delete something from the middle, which alleviates this pain of using a for loop. And that's the way I want to loop through my objects. So that is the first change I'm going to make. So let's make that change now by going back into here. Let's get rid of this. This is what I want to use, this keys, object keys, local storage thing. And what I want to do is I want to start fixing this problem where it says it breaks when we delete the middle item or the top item, right? The reason why it breaks is because we're using a for loop, like I said before. But now what we can do is, instead of this, I want to create a new variable called keys, right? And we'll do the same thing here. This is inside of our display contact list function. And we'll say object.keys is, we're going to get that from local storage. And what I want is some kind of for loop to loop through each of the objects. Now, there's some options we have for for loops. I can use a for each. And this is a classic for each where I can put in the array name, which is keys. And for each key in keys, for each key and keys, I can loop, let's do a console log just to show you this works, of each key, right? So I'm looping through each key, and I want to output what the key is. So let's do that. And if I go, that's only going to be in the contact list. If I go through here, you can see clearly I'm getting a list of keys, key values, right, that are being output by using something like this. So this is one way of doing it, but it's a little bit cryptic when you look at how this is written. Keys.forEach. We could also use the jQuery way of doing things, but I prefer to use either there's for in or there's for of. Let's take a look at the other ones. So let's go look at a couple of other looping structures. So there's for in, right? For in gives us, okay, well, this is interesting. For each key in object, for each key in object. So this is something I can do too. Let's see if I can bypass this issue and just say for each key in local storage. So if I put local storage in there, then what do I get? What do I get there? And it says, if my object has own property, call the object key, and then this element. This is just a default little bit of code. Let's just do a console log again of the key that I get from the object. So if I did this, and I go back out, now we get all of the keys plus all the properties too, right? All the properties too, like length, clear, get item, key, all this stuff. That's not what we want. So this is neat, but not what we were looking for. So what about, that's for in. Then there's the for of loop. For of looks like this. For some kind of iterator, key, of, object, and where object is keys. For key of keys, for every key of keys, for each key of keys, this is the better for each loop. And we can clearly see that if I do a console log and do the key, then you're going to see the same list that we had before. And I think this is an easier way of looking at it as opposed to the other older for each loop, which looks like this, right? You can see the difference there. I think this is a little bit easier to read than this. Yeah? So that is the way we're going to do it. And if I can use this system, so I know I have a key, then how do I replace this stuff in here, right? Because I want to do this, right? So that's what I want to do. This is the method for every key and keys. Let's move all of this, right? Let's move all of this up in here. And let's get rid of my for loop. Now there's some issues, right? One of the issues is there's no more index. So the index is gone, right? Let's show the key for now, where this is not going to be the final version, but let's suppose I show the key. So there's my key in there. And this one is going to be key, not index plus one, but actually the key that I want to look at, which is interesting for the class name. So this is the key for the value. Yeah. And so for every key and keys, I look at the key value. And then what I want to get is, depending on what I click on, right, then I should be able to delete the value that I've got. So this should work now. And let's see how that works. So if I save this, and if I go back to our list, then, uh-oh, what's going on? Index is not defined, so I missed something. Where did I miss index? Here is where I missed index. Do I need to do index plus 1 toString now? No, I just need to put in key, because key is already a list, a string. So if I go back now, you can clearly see that this is working nice. Same way as it worked before. However, note that it's going to produce this list in whatever order it feels like. It's not an ordered list. It's not a alphabetized list. You know, it's just going to appear in whatever order JavaScript feels like making it work. Okay, how it's been kind of placed inside. However it looks here, pretty much. However the application local storage decides to store it is the way that it's going to appear up here. Okay, so that's something to note. But we have a great advantage now where if I want to delete something in the middle, like Tom, and I want to delete this one, then I'm still okay. It's not going to burn down like it did before. So this fixes this issue, which we talked about down here inside where it says to do, need to fix this item. This fixes this issue. So I'm going to put this up on GitHub right now. In fact, I want to put this whole thing up on GitHub as a starter. Let's do that for you guys, right? So right now I don't have a Git repository that's associated with this. Let's do that. So let's make a new thing here, and I'll say git init, git add dot, git commit -m, and I'll say fixed contact list delete issue. That's the first thing I'm going to put in. So it's not really an initial commit, but it's going to show what we did for this one. And then I want to put this up on GitHub. I need a repository for this to work. So I'm going to go here and go to my up here in Durham Programmer and make a new repository for ICE4B. Let's do that. So again, it's WEBD6201, winter 2021, ICE4B. We'll make this public, and we'll go create repository. And then what you're going to get is these last 3 lines of code that I need, so I can copy them, and I can go back in here and press paste. And you're going to see that this is going to put everything up on GitHub for the first time. Okay, now that I have this, then what I want to do is I want to grab this link here. And this is the link that we're going to be using for the remainder of the week. So let's go put this up on where it says in-class exercise. I'm going to put up that link as an example of what mine would look like compared to yours. This is week 4 GitHub link, right? So you have it. I want to make sure you have that. You can compare my code with your code. This is just an opportunity for you to take a look at mine. Week 4 should be week 5. Hold on a second. Week 5. That's what it should say, not week 4. All right, so there it is. So this is ICE4, but week 5 because we didn't do an in-class exercise first week. All right, so that is where we're at with that. And hopefully you guys are with me. Are you with me on this thing? Hopefully you are. I see Nicholas is checkmarked. And I see Muzda, that's good. Thank you for that. All right. Thanks so much for that. Let's continue now with the next set. So now that I've got that going on and I've got this fix going, there's still some issues to address. One is yes, I can add in a ID, but the ID is not relevant anymore. What I mean by that is when I'm in my display contact page, and what I'm doing is I'm selecting an ID based on local storage length. That doesn't make any sense anymore because I don't care about the local storage length, right? What I care instead is I want to create some kind of key that is based on some other value. We can use the date value. And for this, let me show you what the date value looks like. If I do something like, let's do again in the start, if I do a console log date, the date class dot now, date.now in JavaScript, the date class provides a lot of little functions like any other language, and now provides a number of milliseconds between 1970, I think it's January 1st, 1970, and right now, how many milliseconds that is. So that is a pretty unique value every single millisecond. So if I go back to my contact list and go to inspect, then in my console, it crashed. Hold on a second. In my console, let's just do light server again. Sometimes it happens, right? Then if I go to the contact list in my console and I look at my console here, you can see that this is the number that I'm going to get. And if I refresh, you're going to get another number. And if I refresh, you're going to get another number. And it's going to be, there's 1,000 milliseconds every second, which means this number is going to change quite rapidly, which means chances are this is going to be a unique number every single time I add something into the list. But sometimes you might have, maybe if I had multiple users using this thing, that would be bad. And we may want to add other things in here, like maybe a first initial of the full name. So let's add that in as a thing where I combine that with the date.now to create a unique key. Let's do that. So if I was going to do a unique key, more of a unique key anyway, there's other things we can do to hash this and to make it more interesting. But for now, let's just use that unique key. And if I go to where I display my contact, let's do this. So before I set the local item, this is on around my line 104. It's inside of the send button on click event, inside of display contact. I want to set the key to some new value. So one of them is going to be, one part of it is going to be date.now. That's going to be part of the key. But the other part that I want is I want to take my I want to get a substring of my full name. So I can say, I want to get my contact dot full name, right? And I want to use, let's do a couple things. I can use substring. And what substring does is it starts off with a value, right, as an example. So where I want to start and where I want to end. And basically what it's going to do, it's going to produce a substring between my first value and I'm just going to get my first value from the top, so substring. And what I can do is I can add that to the date.now to produce an original kind of first initial and then plus milliseconds afterwards for a key number, right, that I can use to put right here instead of the local storage.length. So let's put that in there. So we'll use key for that instead. And to try this, let's try adding me back in. So I'm going to go back to my contact and I'm going to put me back in. I'll say Tom, right? If I can spell my name properly. And then my contact number plus my email address. And then click subscribe to our contact list because I need to do that, and then click send. And then if I do that and if I show my contact list, you can see now here I am, but I got this long thing here. This is good because I got a unique key, not compared to these ones. So I don't worry about 26 whatever it's going to be. It prints it out too, which is nice because it doesn't matter. It'll loop through anything as I go through, right? And I can also delete it. So if I click delete, I can delete that. I can target it just like normal. all that's good. But I print out these things in random order, the ID, and the ID doesn't make any sense anymore. This is not really the ID of this. This is kind of like my number or my order or whatever. So let's change this so that it doesn't show ID and that this is just, you know, whatever order that I want to. I'm just going to make my own order up, okay? Because I want to hide the original ID. I don't want to show this. That kind of defeats the purpose, if you will. Okay, so a couple things. In my contact list HTML file, down in here where it says ID, let's just put a hashtag. So we're just going to use a hashtag for number, indicating the number, right? So that's the first thing. That's in my HTML. So I'm modifying my HTML just a bit. And then I want to go into my app.js again and redo my for loop a little bit. So, excuse me. One thing I could do is have a local index that I can use up here, right? That I can use to loop through. And this way, I'm not going to have my key, but rather some index that I want to show instead. So I'm going to do something like let index equals to 0, right? And then what I want to do is in my for loop, I'm going to go through and I'm going to use the original index here. So instead of key, I'm going to use index just in the first thing, in this first area here. It's going to show my index, the one I want you to see, right? And then at the bottom of the loop, I'm going to do an index plus plus. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. How is this going to look? Well, what's going to happen is, I'm just going to move this over here a little bit. What's going to happen is every time it loops through, it's going to increment my index. So it's going to show my index starting at 0, and it's going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever. I can also make it work at 1 because it doesn't really matter, like all the items, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It looks like it's organized and you know, this kind of thing. But really, I'm just masking whatever the original key is with this. And to show you this, if I go into inspect, and if I go to console, and if I click on edit, not delete, but edit, you're going to see the original index. If I click Stephen Strange, it's not really ID number 5. It's whatever Stephen Strange's ID was. Well, in this case, it's 5. But it's whatever it is inside of the application in here. Okay. So that is how it'll work. And I think that works better than what we had before. All right. So that is making my own original key functionality. All right. I think it's better. You're stop that until this. I'm going to push this in a second. Please take a look at my code and compare mine to yours in order for you to work properly. All right, so that's what I've done, and let's save that. That gives me my original list and all that kind of stuff. And what I want now is to take care of this problem. I want to make a new edit page to help me out. And why this is good? Well, because one of the things that that we want to do, right, with the edit page, and just a second, I forgot to push something. Just going to pull up my command prompt for a second. I just need to do some back processing here. But one of the things that I want to do with this one is create a new edit page that's flexible enough so that if I want to use the edit page as an add page, which we'll do later on this week, probably tomorrow in the morning, then what I can do is I can use the edit page as an add page too. I don't want to have more than one page. Like, for example, what if I want to add a new contact somewhere else? I want to have the ability to use the same structure, because when I have an edit page, more or less, it's going to be the same as my contact list. That's what it is, right? So I think it's important, you know, in order for us to have some flexibility, we want to be able to do that, right? So and I know that's a lot of talk, but what I mean to say by that is it's important, you know, to have that flexibility. Otherwise, I'm going to duplicate, and I don't want to. Whenever we think about duplicating anything, that's a bad thing. That's a really bad thing, because what ends up happening is we're wasting a lot of time and energy where we can actually make our code a little bit more reasonable, a little better, and that kind of thing. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start off with an edit page. Let's duplicate our contact.html for now. And again, we're duplicating pages, and that's something we're going to fix later on too. So let's get our contact.html, and we're just going to copy or duplicate. So I'm going to go here. Notice it says I can copy, and then I can paste. And then when I paste, I can change the contact copy. I'm using the contact page because it already has a form in it. And I'm going to rename this to edit for now. Really what this is details, the contact details, right? And that's what it should be, details.html. We're making it edit for now, okay? Because I have my edit page, edit.html, we need to make a few changes. One thing is on the top where it says contact, we need to change this to edit because otherwise my app switcher, my page switcher won't know what to do at this point, okay? So that's the first thing, edit. The second thing is that it's not going to be a contact page, but actually it's going to be something like edit contact. So edit contact, right? I need my full name, my contact number, my email address, just like my contact page, but I don't need to subscribe. So let's just leave this out. My send button won't be a send button. It's going to be a edit button, right? That's what it's going to be. It's not going to do a submit action, but it's going to be the button action because I want to control how it submits everything. My cancel button won't be a reset action, but also a button action, right? And my I'm going to change my icon from the envelope, which is the send. We're going to make this edit for now. From the send, we're going to make it to edit. So I'm going to show the little edit icon, right, from Font Awesome. Okay, so that's all the changes I made. Everything else is the exact same. It's the exact same as the original form. It's just it's going to say edit contact instead of contact list or contact us. All right, so that's what it's going to be. That's the edit.html. So now I need, in order for me to see this, right, as an example, I need to be able to link to it somehow. And the first thing is it needs to be in my app.js. Again, I have an edit.html. The way I made that is I took my contact.html, copied it, removed my checkbox, and I changed the heading to edit contact, and I changed the buttons to the button types to buttons as opposed to submit and cancel because I want to control what happens here, and those kind of actions. Okay, so that's where I went. Show contact list, this also needs to go away. So this show contact list button is going to go bye-bye, right? Because I don't want to see that contact list, right? The only way I want to see that contact list is from the contact. It's got to be a little different, right, for my form. All right, cool. So that is what it's going to look like. But what I need to do is I need to go into my app.js now. And further down where I have this app switcher, or my page switcher, I need to add in a page for my new page, which is the edit page, right? Now there's different ways I can do it. I can say edit contacts, right? Or just the edit page. For now, I'm just going to say it's just the edit page. We're going to change this later, and you'll see why. So in here, what I want is, wow. What I want in here is a new function, which is display edit, right? That's what it is, display edit. And my display edit, I don't have this function yet, right? But I need to make it. Let's make it. So this is going to be a new function called display edit, right? And so when I go to the edit page, it goes to the display edit function when I can do my specific things for that page. And yes, I am going to get an error because I've kind of put my break in the middle of nowhere. There we go. Thank you for that. All right, so that is pretty good, right? I've just added another entry into my little list. This is really cumbersome, and it'd be really nice if I had another system to do this as opposed to going through each of the pages in my list to switch, right? But we're just doing things by hand right now. All right, next. So now that I have the edit page, so just like I did with location.href, remember last week, location.href took me to the to refresh my contact list page. But what I can also do is location.href, and what I can do is I can take me to a new page. So instead of doing a console log for the button, what I want to do is location.href here on the edit button, and that's going to be equal to the edit.html file. But if I go there to edit.html, let's take a look at that now. I'm going to keep this to do on because we're not done yet. And if I go back to my page, right, so back to my page here, right, and if I refresh, if I click edit with Tony Stark, then here's my edit contact. Nice, nice, right? These don't do anything right now, and this doesn't do anything right now. I'm not doing any validation. What I want to do with edit contact, right, and by the way, I really don't like the fact this is offset from this. This is something we need to fix, right? This should be at least over here. It's a form, just like the contact form is way over here. This part should probably be in here. We can combine these things to make them together. Services is okay because maybe I'm going to put services like a different way. In projects, we don't know. But contact us and all that stuff is something we need to change. This is working because contact list is okay because it's a big list, right? So if I click edit, I want to, whatever the object I clicked on, so if I clicked on Bruce Banner, I want to fill in this detail with Bruce Banner's details. How do I do that, right? I need to somehow transfer data from, my my other previous file, right, into my edit contact. How do I do that? So going back to our code, so in here, it's not enough just to do this, right? What I want to do is I want to get the value that I'm getting from the edit button, whatever button I'm clicking, so this dot value, right? And I want to add it in, right, to, let's redo. I want to add it into the edit.html. I want to add that. So I want to say edit, instead of edit.html, let's put a hashtag in there. So edit.html hashtag. And then after the hashtag, put in some values. So I can say plus. And then I want to type in this.value, or whatever it is. So what this is going to do on my URL, it's going to show the edit value that I want. Okay, edit.html and this value. So now if I did this, and if I go back to my page, all I've done is I'm still going to edit.html. I'm just adding a hashtag at the end, and then this.value. Okay. If I go back to my page, and if I go back one step, and if I click on refresh, let's say, and then click on Tony Stark, then I should get on the top the ID that I'm working with. Okay, so that's how I send the information. If I click on Stephen Strange, I'm going to get another ID. If I make a new contact, so let's say if I go to contact list and make a new contact, that's me, right? And add a contact number and choose to add it to the subscribe list and click send and then click show contacts. Notice that I'm going to come in a number 5 by whatever reason. That's just the reason. That's just the way the application storage is looking at. There's my big long ID, right? Then I should, if I press edit here, I should see that big long ID. Okay. So I get that ID here. That's the ID of my contact. That's good. Now, how do I retrieve it from there? So one thing is getting it, and the other thing is retrieving it. I need to be able to do that too, right? So how do I do that? Because that's the next step. So what I want to do is inside of my page, let's go back to my page here, right? When I send it, then I'm going to retrieve it in my display edit function, right? That is the function that I want to use, to go through the list, right? And see what I'm going to get. So the way I can do that is I can say let get the key, and that's going to equal to another location object. We can say location has a lot of stuff, right? Hey, let me show you a couple things in location. So if I do a console log of location, let's take a look at the location object. And if I output that, when I go to my display edit page only, so again, I'll go back to the list, click edit, and then go to inspect and look at the console, you can see that the location object that I get has a bunch of things. Here's something that it has. A hash, which is hash 4. Host, host name, href, origin, path name, port. These are all the things that I can get from my location object. So the host name is, what the host name is right now locally, and so on. These are all the things. And what I want to do is I want to use this hash. Because notice hash says hash 4, right? This is pretty cool. So what I can do is I can strip the hash out of the hash 4, because this is a string. So I can remove the hash by splitting it, right? And I only care about a substring that goes from the first character 4 on, right? And the way that can work is if I go back to my code for a second. So instead of this is a console, I want to do, let's say let key equal to location, right, dot hash. I know I'm going to get the whole thing, so hashtag as well, but I want to use a substring. I want to use some method chaining here, and I want to use the substring of the hash that I'm going to get, and I want to start from the first character on. Substring basically says that I can start where I want to start my string, right? So let's say it's the number, the index number of the character that I want to start at in the substring. And then what I want to do is I can specify an optional ending character. If I don't specify the optional end, it just goes for the rest of the string, right? That's what the end does, okay? So if you know, if I hover over this, it just tells you, it says 0 based, that's the end. Index number indicating the end of the substring, and the substring includes the characters up to but not including the character indicated by the end. If the end is omitted, the characters from the start through the end of the original string are returned, which is what I want. So I don't care about the first character, but I do care about everything else, which is the actual key that I care about. Yeah, that's what this is. And the next thing is I want to create a new contact. So I want to make a new contact to fool around with. So let contact is equal to a new core.contact, because remember I made my contact in the core namespace. We did that namespace stuff last week, right? And I also want to check to see what if my contact doesn't exist. So let's say, for example, my key is empty. Somehow I go there and I don't have a key at all, right? Or what after I take the hash away, or if there's no hash that exists or anything like that, then it'll break anything I do with it afterwards, right? So I want to check to see I want to do a simple check to ensure that the key is not empty, because that would be a bad thing. Okay, so I'm going to say if key is not equal to empty string. If that is not true, then let's start checking some stuff that I want to do. I want to contact and I want to deserialize kind of stuff, the things that I'm going to get from my local, the local storage based on the key that I'm getting, whatever the key value is. I'm going to get that information. So I'm going to say, so contact.deserialize. Deserialize, remember what it does? It takes an object from local storage and places it inside of the contact, right? So I'm going to say local storage dot get item, and then the key that I want to use. Okay, let's go through this. Contact deserialize. Remember, in my contact class, I made my deserialize function with you, right? And the deserialize function, what it does is it takes my data that I pass in, whatever that data is, and it passes in full name, contact number, and email address. It takes the property array from the data and it splits it across commas. And how this works, remember, is if I go to my list in the application, this is split up by commas. It takes each of the keys, or if you will, the tokens inside of the array. So I've got or a string. I got a token here, Bruce Banner, another one that's the number, and another one that's his email address. And I've split this up into little substrings. That's what I'm doing. And that's how I kind of make the full name, contact number, and email address. That's how I do it with deserialize. And there's no, I haven't put any kind of checking in place or anything else. There's still lots to do, right? So going back to this then, if I deserialize my local storage and I use the key, I get everything inside my contact. So my contact now will have first name, full name, contact number, and email address. Cool. Well, what I want to do now is I want to inject that information on my page, and let's use jQuery for that. So I'm going to say something like, hey jQuery, I want you to find a ID of full name. We know that full name is the way we can access the input element that has a full name ID. And then I want to inject inside the value, which is what it's going to show, my contact.full name. All right, so let's just do this one, just one. Let's see how one looks. Okay, so again, I'm going to go back to this, and you can see now I see Bruce Banner. Right, and if I go back, and if I click on Stephen Strange, I should see Stephen Strange. Right, so it's taking whatever I get and injecting it into my edit page. Right, so that's what this is. Let's put in the rest. So dot hashtag contact number. And then it's going to be dot val and then contact number. And then the next one is going to be email address dot val and then contact email address. Notice I put in capitals here because that's the way I made my contact class with capital properties. Full name, contact number, and email address. And if I press save and I go back now, hashtag. If I save and I go back now, you can see that I've got all the details. So no matter where I go back, I can click on any one of these things, right? I can click on Peter Parker and I'm going to get Peter Parker. I can click on Clark Kent and I'm going to get Clark Kent, right? So I can fill in the details of anything that I have in here. So pretty straightforward, right? And that's what this display edit does so far. It just takes the information and deserializes it from the local storage, adds it into the contact, the empty contact that I created up here, and then I can mess around with the contact, right? Okay, next, let's do some simple things in here. So one thing that I want to do no matter what is, what if I press the cancel button? The cancel button is easy, right? I can say, hey, jQuery, I want to get an ID of my cancel button. And when I click on the cancel button, I want to make a function. We use the old way to do it. I want to make a function to location.href, and I want to go back to the contact list.html. So that is where it's going to go. So this cancel button is just going to take me back. It's not going to do anything. Canceling the edit doesn't make any sense. I'm just going to go back to the contact list. All right, so that's what this will do. So if I go back to, if I click on Bruce Banner now and click edit and then click cancel, it'll take me back. So I don't have to go I don't have to click the back button here. All right, cancel, nice and convenient, it'll go back. Okay. So nice and easy. That's the cancel button. That's what that does, right? And then what I want to do is now think about the edit button. What is the edit button going to do? Well, I only want the edit button to function if and only if the key value is not equal to 0, as an example, or do I? Do I care if the key is 0 or not, if it's empty? Because what I want to do is I want to edit or modify the storage item, right, to something that is makes sense. So let's look at both scenarios. The first scenario is I'm editing a value that I already have. So the key is not 0, right? If the key is not 0, then as an example, then I can deserialize and I can do all this stuff. And I have access to a contact that I made here that has some data inside of it. right? However, if the key is 0, there's nothing inside the key. When I say 0, I mean there's like, it's empty. If the key is empty, that means maybe I'm adding a new contact, right? So what I can do here is I can make the button work. Let's say, hey jQuery, I want to connect to the edit button. When the edit button is clicked, right, then what I want to do is do a function. Here's my callback function. Okay. So when the edit button is clicked, then do some kind of function. Let's put the curly braces where I like them. That's just me. So I can see the curly braces on top of each other, right? That's all I'm doing it this way. So edit button, hey, on click, let's do a function. And what I want to say is I want to take the contact information and whatever's inside the value, I want to add in, right? So what if the key is empty? If the key is empty, so if this is true, if the key is equal to blank, there's no key right now. I don't have a key. We need to make it. So let's make a key. So if key is equal to, right, empty, if the key is not something that exists, then I want to make a key. And the key that I'm going to make is the same structure that I used when I made a brand new one, right? So for example, let's go back to that other way of doing it, where if I go back to the original way, which is up here, I say that the key is going to be this. So if there wasn't any key before, now there's going to be a key. I don't need the let. Okay. So I'm going to take the contact full name, and I'm going to get a substring from 0 to 1. That's the first character of the full name. I'm not doing any validation here. Okay. First, I'm just assuming that this is going to be there. This is only if I don't have a key. Then I'm going to make my own. If my key is empty. Okay. However, if my key is not empty, then I want to be able to do, I'll use my key, whatever that is. All right. I can do an else, but I can assume some stuff. So what I want to do now is, let's get back into this next part. The next part is going to say, all right, well, my contact.fullname, right? My contact.fullname is whatever it is inside of my full name. So I'll say, hey, full name, hey, jQuery, get access to my full name. And I know there's some ways we can hone this, but for now, we just want to do something like this. Okay, contact.fullname. And I want my contact number and email address. Let's do that. So this is contact. I'm just copy pasted there. Contact number and contact email address, and this should be contact number, and this should be email address. Okay, so I'm basically filling it up. I'm saying take the value that's already in my form and assign it to the contact. I haven't added the contact in yet. First, I build up the object. Contact, I'm using it as an object so that I can format the object properly. I'm putting it inside of the contact class that I made, right? Full name, contact number, email address. And then I want to store it. I want to say, hey, local storage, right? I want to set item to whatever the key that I'm using is, and my contact.serialize, I want to serialize into the item that I want. And then after I'm done that, take me back to my contact list, which is basically just doing this again. Show me my contact list now that I've added a new item. Okay, are you with me? So check mark if you understand what I'm doing, X if you're really lost and you don't know what's happening here. Again, I'm going to go through this step by step to show you what it is again. So again, in my display edit, I get the location of my, I get the key from my hash. The hash is in my URL, which has a hashtag and the name or the number related to my, the key that I'm sending here, all right? My contact, I make a brand new empty contact as a container for what I'm going to edit. okay, or add. Right now it's just called edit, but for now later on we can do add too. I check to see if my key is not empty. If my key is not empty, then I want to deserialize or take everything from local storage, whatever I have in my key, and add it to my contact. And then what I want to do is display it in my form. That's what this does. So I can say that, display contact information in the form. That's what it's going to do, right? Deserialize it. This is gets the the information from local storage. So get contact info from local storage, right? That's what this does. Display the contact info in the form, right? And that's what this little piece does. It checks to see if the key is not empty, and then it does this part. If the key is not empty, if the key is empty, there's no point deserializing or trying to get the contact from the local storage because it doesn't exist. All right, so that's why I do this guard. That's what this is, just a check. The next part is the edit button and the cancel button. The cancel button is easy. Click the cancel button, go back to the list. The edit button is a little tricky. First, I check to see if it actually is empty. Check to see if key is empty. If it is, make a new one. Create a new key. If it's empty, right? And if it's not empty, use the old one. Use the one that I got from local storage, right? Or the one that I got from up here from the, location, as an example, location hash, okay? And then what I want to do here is, basically copy, contact information from form to the contact object. That's what I'm doing. I'm copying the stuff in. And then what I can do with that is then I can add the contact info to local storage. These are the steps, right? Now take me back, return to the contact list. And this is the same thing. This is return to the contact list. Make sense? Maybe that's a little better. Okay, let's check to see if this all works. Nice idea, Tom, but who knows if it even works. Let's go back to here and try and edit it. So I'm going to go to Edit, Bruce Banner. And now I see Bruce Banner. I don't like Bruce Banner's number. Let's make his number 556, and then click Edit. And if everything works, then I should see that Bruce Banner's number now is 556. Oh man, Tony Stark's number is 5562. Let's change this to 553. So going to Tony Stark, changing it to 553. You know what? This is all good. How do I add a new one? Well, I don't have a mechanism for adding a new thing right now, but I'm able to edit and delete. No problem. Okay. So this is pretty cool. And what this does is it takes care of my issue that I mentioned above, which is need to create an edit page. The edit page is done. Let's push this up on GitHub. So control backtick. I'm going to go to GitHub. I'm going to say clear git add dot git commit -m. I'll say added working edit page. It's not perfect. There's no validation right now. We have lots of stuff to do. But first things first. Okay, I'll check you with you again. Are you with me? Are you clear on how this works? Do you get it? What I'm trying to do? Right now I've got the create part separate in my contact page. My contact page, as an example, if I go back out to here, my contact page creates the contact. If I click subscribe to our contact list, right? That's one thing I can do. My show contact list, right, reads the list. Reads the database. This is kind of a little database I made locally. It's just a mock-up, right? I'm going to go back, Nicholas, in a second. And I can edit it by clicking the edit button, right? So instead of the real Hulk, let's make the Hulk at example.com, edit, right? I can edit it by clicking the edit button, and I can delete it by clicking the delete button, right? So and I also have a check. If I say cancel, it won't delete. That check is very important. Delete. Okay, right? There it is. One thing to notice is notice when I press the delete button, it kind of highlights, even if I press cancel and it's still highlighted. To fix this, what you can also do with the delete button is refresh the screen, right? So either way, you refresh the screen. So that's kind of a little, I don't know, tweak, if you will. So I go back to this and let's go into my delete button. And that would be inside of my display contact list because that's where the delete button is. Here's my delete button. And I only go back to the refresh page when I remove an item. But what I can do is take this out of here, and whether I remove an item or not, I can refresh the page. And I think this is really good because you want to refresh the page either way, because then it'll remove that little highlight around the delete button. So again, what I mean by this is if I go to the delete button now and I click delete, and if I click cancel, it should refresh anyway. And so it doesn't show the delete highlighted, right? See, look, if I click cancel now, it just refreshes. So refreshing is important because there is no way to refresh automatically, right? I have to make sure that it refreshes the page so it shows you the updated list, right? That's what it does. And it shows you in our order, all right? Again, lots of little tweaks we can make, okay? But nothing that's too crazy right now. One thing I want to do is I want to modify the page, and for your in-class exercise 4, I want to be able to get at least the one part of it is all create, read, update, and delete. And one thing we haven't been able to do in my contact list, well, there's two things. One is the only way I can get to my contact list is through my contact us, right? So a couple tweaks. And the other way is there's no way to add a new contact when I'm here. So if I'm in my new contact list, I should be able to add a new contact manually, right? By going back into that edit page, right? So how do I do that? So let's start first, and then maybe we'll finish tomorrow, okay? We'll see how it goes. So how does this work? So in my add, right, what I want to do is I need to modify my page a little bit. So if I go back to my contact list page, is what I'm talking about. In my contact list page right now, I have something called contact list. But I need to make another button appear on top of the table, right? A couple ways to do that. I can put a button here, right, which is underneath the contact list, or a button on top of the table, which is inside my columns. I recommend that you put it just on top of the table. And we'll make it so that it is an add button. So we'll make it a button. And the class is going to be button dash primary, right? Button dash large, right? I want that. And inside the button, what I want is an I tag of FAS and then FA dash plus, and then FA large. Let's see if that works. And with the value that I can actually add the value in here too, right? So if I put the value in quotations of add contact, okay, if I click on this thing, it'll do exactly what I want, but it's going to put it in the wrong order. This should actually be in here. And I don't need quotations for that. And if I really want to, I could add some margin, right? And in a second, let's see how this works. So first of all, let's see how this looks. And I'm just putting some space in here so you can see it. And let's see what it looks like now. It's pretty big. It's an add button. It doesn't do anything, right? Add contact. It's really big too. I don't know if I like it so big. Maybe I'll remove it, the FA large, and also the button large. Maybe just a regular button. There we go. That's a little better. It looks better with this structure. I need a separation between the add button and the list, right? So let's add some margin. Now remember how we did it in my contact web.html, I use the built-in method MB, which is margin bottom 3, right? And I did the same thing for my stuff that I have in here. Margin button, my margin bottom is what I want. I want a separation between one thing and another thing. So let's see if we can add that into this. So in my contact list. So again, what I want is some kind of margin around my button. So I can use that in the class. So class button primary, and I can say margin. I want a bottom margin of, let's say 2. Let's see what that looks like. Doesn't have to be that big. Even margin bottom 1 might be okay. So a little bit of separation between the bar. Maybe that's too much. Let's try 1. Little bit of separation between the button and the list to make it look like it's a little bit departed, separate. So that's what the add contact does. We get a little plus right there, and then we can add the contact. Again, it's in line with this. If you don't like the plus, there's other options here for Font Awesome. So you can, if I click add, you can see that there is plus that's a square. There's this plus that I use. There's also a plus with a circle. Whatever you decide. If you want plus circle, then we can just go back here and just go plus dash circle. And it's just as easy as that. When we go back to our contact list, you'll see a little plus circle. Maybe that's better. A little bit more descriptive, right? And it's more like this, these ones. So what I want is when I click the add contact button, then it's going to take me to my edit page again, right? And instead of taking me with a hashtag as an example, then we're almost set up. It's going to take me there and not put a hashtag. The hashtag is going to be empty. So I've got my button. I need some kind of way of identifying my button. Let's add an ID. We'll just call this the add button. This is on the HTML. All this is on the HTML. Right? And let's put this up on GitHub. Before I do any additional changes, we're just going to go here and go to GitHub. So I'll say git add dot git commit -m, and I'll say add, included add button on the contact list page. Hit push. That'll push this up, so you'll be able to get the add button from the from GitHub. You'll see that when I added that in. Cool. All right, so I've got that button. Well, we need to respond to that button, and that's got to happen in my contact page, contact list page. And the contact list page is not where it's display edit, but actually where it is display contact list. This one. So I have one for edit. I have one for delete. I need one for add. Let's put it, doesn't matter where, let's put it at the bottom, just because these ones are working. Let's see if I can get this done before we go. So we'll say, we want to have a button that I'm going to click on that is the edit, the add button. I can use that because I know I have an ID. These ones I can't do that because they're using a class that's either edit or delete that I made, the edit or delete class, right? But here I can just use the add button ID, right? So when I click on that button, then what I want to do is I want to take me to the page, the edit page, which I call edit for now, right? I want to take me to the edit page, and I'm going to do this by editing. But now my hashtag is going to be, well, there's not going to be a hashtag, right? So I'm just going to go to my edit page with nothing. Okay, with nothing. So if this is true, what happens? Does this break if I do it this way? So let's see what happens if I do that. So if I click add contact, it doesn't break. Do I get an error? That's something else. That doesn't matter what it goes here. Do I get an error? Mouse event is just my script, right? I don't care about this. But I don't get an error either. I can't edit anything because it doesn't do anything, right? Did I add an empty object, right? That's the thing. Did I add an empty object? And the answer is no, I didn't, right? I got this one though. I got a null, right? Here's my null. And that's a bad thing. So I don't want to ever have null and undefined and undefined. I never want to have this, right? So I never want to be able to add that. That's just me doing my validation, which we're going to hit next day, tomorrow, all right? But that's good. It added a brand new contact. Whatever I had in there, it added in. So that worked. So when I go to add contact, and if I add something new, you know, again, let's say I add another hero or something like that, right? So we're just going to call him Logan. He's got a simple name, right? And his contact number is going to be 416-555-555, I don't know, 8. And it'll be Wolverine at example.com, right? And if I click edit, it says edit, but that's not really what I want. I want this to say add. I want this to say add. Edit. And then I can say, hey, there's Logan, and here's Wolverine, and he's 558. He's 558, so is this guy. Maybe there's a 559 I can put. Let's edit Logan, right? So put that in there and click edit, and then we're good, right? Wolverine. But let's think about this now, right? What I want to do instead is I want to, when I click the add contact button, so I already got some functionality, kind of works. But when I click the add contact button, I want this to say add contact, and I want this to say add, not edit. How do I do that? Well, that means that when I go here with nothing and I go to my display edit, right? If my key is equal to 0, right, to nothing, like this. So there's going to be an else in here somewhere. If my key is equal to nothing, right? Because what is my key equal to when I come in here? Let's do a console log just to do some identification of what this thing is, right? So what is my key equal to? Is it undefined? What is it? Because it's important to understand what it is. So I go back and I go back to this and I click edit, no problem. I go back to this and I click add. What do I get inside my console? I get nothing. I get an empty string, actually. I get something, but it's an empty string. It's not undefined, which is important, right? So, okay, so it's not this. So it skipped all this, and it did this. It identified it as this because it created its own null variable. So now what I need to do is, if it is empty, then I need to do an else in here. A couple of things I could do is I could in here create my key because I'm doing the else anyway. So instead of it doing it in here and on the edit button, I could just do it here. As soon as I go in here, I create a key that I add to my contacts, right? The problem is I don't have a full name yet, so it would be empty. That's why it's important to do it here inside. After I've edited everything, chances are I might have a contact that has some information. Again, there's no validation here. We're assuming right now the user is going to do everything perfect. Of course, that's not going to be true. And we're going to add validation techniques tomorrow. So how do I do this? So I have my key, and then it's empty. And what I want to do is start modifying stuff. Start modifying. This is where I'm going to modify. So modify the page so that it shows add contact in the header. That's what I want to do. And add button, right? Instead of edit button. All right, so something down below, right? So how do I do that? Well, I need to hook into my add contact or edit contact object. So going back to my contact or edit that HTML page, that is here in my H1 tag. Okay, jQuery. I want to find the first H1 tag that's contained within inside of my main. Okay. Hey, jQuery. I want to find inside of main, I want to find an H1 tag, that H1 tag, all H1 tags, right, that are inside of main. There's only one. I want to change the text of my main, of this value, to add contact when I'm getting there, right? So it looks like it's supposed to be, right, an add page, not a edit page, right? Going back, now it says add contact. If I go back and I click edit, it says edit contact. If I go back and click add, it says add contact, right? So it's going to use the same page, and it's going to double duty. It's going to act as an add as well as an edit. We just need to change this button now, and I need to change this icon so it looks like an add, not an edit. Okay, so that is the first piece. Next is I need to change the button. And the button that's appearing in my edit.html, right, it looks like this button right here. So what we need to do is we need to change the I class, this part right here. I got to target this one, and I need to target basically the inner text content or the inner HTML of the button that is called the edit button, because this is inner HTML, my friends. Right? Inner HTML of the button class, the button, the edit button. So I need to get access to that. So again, I'm going to go back to app.js and say, okay, hey, edit button, hashtag edit button. I want to change my HTML, the HTML that's inside of the button, and I want to change it to some value, right? Whatever it's going to be, right? And to make it simple, I'm just going to grab the stuff that I already have there. So I want to grab all of this. Let's copy it. Go back into my app.js, right? And I'm going to paste it in there inside of backtick characters, right? So my inner HTML is going to look like an I class of FAS FA plus circle and FA large. And instead of edit, it's going to say add. Let's see if this makes sense and what I'm doing. So I'm just modifying my page so that it's, okay, so we'll take this part. Modify button, edit button. So that it shows, it reads, it shows add, as well as the appropriate icon. See if that works. So whenever I go back here now, it says add and the appropriate icon. And that makes it more interesting. Did you want to redirect to the edit page or the regular contact page? Are you saying, I'm in the edit.html. So I'm actually adding it because here what I'm doing is the reason why I'm redirecting to my edit page is because I already know I want to edit. I want to add a contact to my subscriber list. That's what that list is. It's a subscriber list, right? In my edit, in my contact page, as an example, let's go back to my edit. In my contact page, which is here, contact us, this is just a contact page that I sent an email. One thing that's missing from my contact page that you guys would have had to do for lab 1, we can add that in now to show you the results of this. So make the contact page a little looking like more like a contact page. We're missing a text area. We're missing a text area here, right? So we can go back to Get Bootstrap just to make it look differently, right? And let's go to Docs. And I want to go to Forms. And Forms have a input groups is what it has, something that looks like this. And here's the text area. And this text area is what I want. I want to grab where it says with text area, this one. And I'm going to grab this, again, I went to getbootstrap.com, docs, I clicked on forms, and I went down to input group, which is what I'm using, right? And then I grab this, and I'm going to go back to my my page, right? So this is the actual page now in my contact.html. And on the bottom here, I want to add another input group that says your message. This is your message. I think this message should be required, right? Because, hey, you know what? If I'm going to have my message or something like that, it doesn't make sense that it's not required. So we'll put in required, right? That's something that we have to add in the form, right? And we also want to have some kind of, you know, a default. So your message goes here, right? That's the message, email, you know, subscribe to the contact list, and then your message, right? Here's my message that I want to put in there. And this message is going to show a message area. That's what it's going to show. So if I go back and just show this right now, let's go back to my contact. Now you can see the message area. It looks like this. So you can see I can type in a message, whatever I want there. Okay. Maybe what I want, and I'm just thinking about from a an ordering perspective, it doesn't make sense that I would split up at subscribe to our contact list here. Then maybe I want to put this last. I'm going to put full name, contact number, email, and your message, right? And I think what I want to do is do that. So let's move that up. And let's add in a margin bottom of 3, just like everything else. So we have that kind of in there. I need an ID for my message just in case I want to capture it. Right now I'm not capturing it, but I need to declare the text area with an ID. So we'll say that this is the message. And we have to make sure this is clear because it can't be message. This is message area. This is a message area too, right? But this is my message that I want to send to the user. So this is like my, you know, we'll call it the call it message by itself. ID of message, right? And once I have that in, it'll look more like this. That's more of what my contact page will look like. Again, I'm not sure that I'm fully sold on this input group stuff. It looks interesting, but I'm not sure that this makes sense for a contact page. Maybe what we want instead of my input group is just a regular form control, and you know that might look better, you know, kind of in the end, right? But anyways, these are things that we can decide later on from you know, some kind of you know I want to have some more control over some of the things that we're adding in, right? So we can maybe think of a way of styling this to make it look nicer, and hopefully you did that for your stuff that you did for your first assignment, your first lab. So that's this. So it looks a little different. Right now we don't care about the message area. We're not capturing it. We're not adding the message into our contact in any way, because all we want to do is capture the contact. The message would be a quick message that I want to send to you, the user, right? You know, as an example that I want to send to you, and then you can retrieve that message from the contact. The contact sent you a message, an email saying, hey, you know, I need your help with something, whatever the contact wants, right? But he also wants to subscribe, or she wants to subscribe to your mailing list. And that's what this button is for. This show contact list, it's only going to show the contact list of people that subscribe. So if I add a new contact as an example, but I don't click subscribe, remember, then it won't add it to the application. It won't add this into our our list, and you know, it'll just send a message. That's what it's supposed to do. Now this doesn't send anywhere because this is not really a working page, but eventually it will. All right, so that is kind of complete, right? I got the full name, contact number, email address. I got my add button and my cancel button, and these are pretty good. It works okay. There's assumptions we made. One of the assumptions we made is that everything's going to be perfect and the user's going to enter everything perfectly. That is something we have to work in next day. That's tomorrow, right? The other thing that I want to do is just from a formatting perspective, it's been bugging me. I'm looking at it. This should probably be centered. So text center should be applied to this thing. It's minor tweaks, but hey, we're here anyway. Might as well fix it. So where that has to go is in my contact list, just like I put a text center for my table headers for everything else. That should be text centered for everything that comes in. So this should be, my scope should be this, but I should add a little class that's in here just for my table header. And we can say class is equal to text dash center. Okay, and if I go back now, you can see the hashtag is center, but none of these. I need to add this same class text center to each of my items. So if I go back to my app.js now, and I go to that area where I'm adding items, right? That's up here. Then I need to make sure that each of my table header rows also have this class that is text center, right? Just so that way, you know, it looks nicer than what it did before. So kind of centered. That's like way nicer than, I think it looks nicer this way. All right, so minor tweaks. Let's put this up on GitHub. So now we have full CRUD. So full CRUD is done. So now let's, control backtick, and we'll say clear git add dot git commit -m. Let's say added or completed basic CRUD for contact list. Git push. This is part of your in-class exercise for this week. So you've got basic CRUD working now on your contact list. Now, the reason why I've set you up with this, and just to end off the day with this thought, is what I'm getting you to do with this one is once we have full CRUD, so create, read, update, delete here in a working mock-up of a database, then later on this semester, when we connect to a real database, we have a mechanism already for how this can possibly work that we want to use in our page. Last thing that we want to do is I want to put this up and make it live. And remember, to make this live, all I need to do is go to my my list. This is my in-class exercise 4B. And if I refresh, it gives me my latest commit. So 4 commits. And I want to go to settings. This is to remind you of how to put it live. Scroll all the way down to where it says GitHub pages. Click on the main link and click save. And what this is going to do is it's going to deploy my site live, right? And if I go to my site, I know it's deployed live when two things. There's a check mark here, which there's not right now. There's no check mark. And there's a deployment area down here on the right. Right now, it's not live because there's no check mark. Let's refresh and see if I got that check mark. There's the check mark, right? And if I go to the right, you can see that there's a GitHub Pages deployment right here, which is active. If I click on GitHub Pages, and if I click on View Deployment, now you're going to see it live. What does contact list look like? This. If I show my contact list, I have one contact, but I have edit and delete. Let's see if this works online now if I want to add a new contact. So let's add a new contact online. We'll add in Tony Stark online, and I'll add in a contact and an email address. Right? And add. And if everything goes well, then we got Tony Stark. And if I want to delete someone, I can do full delete. I can click, I can edit. So let's say I want to edit my name. I don't like my last name, let's say, so I'll make it Tom Smith and click edit. Then we're going to be good. Tom Smith now is instead of Tony Stark. You know, I don't like my contact at all. I don't think I should put my name. I should put only names of my new contacts in there. Let's click delete. And when I click delete, then it'll delete the item. Nice and easy. All right, so that all works online as well as locally. And I think this is a great step into making a simple database, not secure. There's no security right now, features in any way. We're going to add security as we go, right, and all that kind of stuff. But slowly, slowly, we're starting to build up some kind of data access online. We have a lot of control here, and we're doing all this in preparation for the real work that we're going to do with Node, Express, and MongoDB Atlas. That's coming up. So later on this semester, we're going to go to mongodb.org, where we have our backend database. This is what we're going to be using live with an Express application we're going to put together. And we're going to host it up on something called Heroku. This is something that we're going to do live. This is just a preview of what we're going to use. We're going to go to Heroku. And Heroku is a kind of an online, kind of a hosting site for Node applications. It is not free, but we can use some part of it is free. There's a free access for this thing as well. It's hosted on AWS, which is pretty cool, right? And it's owned by Salesforce, which is pretty cool as well. So really good stuff that we're going to use. We're going to use continuous deployment from Git to Heroku, and we're going to connect to something called MongoDB Atlas, which is an online database. So MongoDB Atlas. MongoDB Atlas is a fully managed online database that allows us to use it. Again, it can work with AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Azure, and a bunch of other ones. Really cool. We're going to do all that by the end of semester. This is in the second half. So lots of stuff, but we're preparing because we got to walk before we can run. And we got to do all those steps. So we've seen CRUD already. We've seen how to do that. And all we're doing is we're just iterating on the same thing that we're doing as we're building up our page. Think about this stuff that we're building right now in our contact list as a mock-up for information that we're going to show in our database. We know how we want to format our database. We know the properties of our database. We have our contact class that we want to use in our database. We can use some of the same elements inside of a web application as opposed to just a website, which is what we have right now. All right, any questions around the stuff that we're doing and the direction we're going in? I think we're progressing well from what I'm seeing, slowly, and hopefully you guys are getting a lot out of this. I think there's a lot to gain by going through this process. Questions or any comments at all? All right. Well, if there's no questions or comments, thank you for that, Nicholas. Then I will let you guys go for today, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. And I'll stop recording on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me again this morning. I really appreciate your attendance.